Now this is kind of exciting because I've never reviewed Turtle Beach sim racing gear before. They're relatively new in the space and this is an interesting form factor. It's different. I quite like the look of it. However, these are not load cell pedals. So it's coming without load cell pedals. You can see the bundled rim here as well. It's not really a Formula or GT rim. However, interestingly, they do also sell this FRX Formula like add-on wheel, which is very interesting. I will cover that in this review as well. It has a standard kind of quick release here that seems to be fairly solid as well. They haven't cheaped out necessarily on the quick release. But when it comes to pricing, interesting. So this bundle here, so the KD3 bundle, costs retail price, I understand it, $449. That's interesting because the MOZA R3, I believe the big competition, cost, well, normally $399, but it's often on sale for $359. That said, I believe Turtle Beach are going to give me a 10% off discount code for anyone to use. So that will be in the description if they've done it. And that would take the price down of this to around $400, which would match the usual price of the MOZA R3. By the way, big thanks to Turtle Beach for giving that discount code. It's quite a big discount code, 10%. It obviously is an affiliate code as well. So if you do use it, or any of the affiliate codes I have, like MOZA, they do often give me a commission back. So thank you if you're using it. I have so many, I shouldn't be biased to any one particular brand. Let's get into it. How am I going to find this? Now, firstly, let's talk power. What is going on with this thing? You see, it's already plugged in. The Xbox button is illuminated. It's quite a nice Xbox button, if you can see. It's actually nicer than the one on the MOZA R3. It's got some buttons down the side as well, and it has this screen. It's quite an interesting system. It's got the lights, the LED lights that are RGB. It has an indicator screen here. I'm going to take this protective film off. I quite like it. You can see everything in the screen. It's got some graphics as well. You can see your rotation. You can see your pedal input. Nice touch. What's not such a nice touch is that it's not that easy to navigate. On the bundled rim, I navigated it using these, going up and down, clicking, holding it to go back. When I had the Formula wheel on, I couldn't quite work how to do it. And I would prefer if you could navigate that actually also with buttons on the base. But it's a nice touch. They've got a screen in here and it's a 3.2 Newton meter base. And what's really interesting about this base is that sometimes I feel like it feels stronger than 3.2 and sometimes it doesn't. So I suspect that's going to be on a per game basis. I'm going to try and put this on with one hand, which is probably a bad idea. So there we go. So that's on now. This base is on. I'll just show you what I mean. If I rotate this around, actually I hit the emergency stop button on the top, so it turned off. You can see now, I just want to show you kind of what 3.2 Newton meters can mean. And I'm very surprised by this, okay? If I start winding this, that to me feels stronger than 3.2 Newton meters. You ready? Don't do that at home. But there's a lot of strength there somehow. To me, that didn't always come through in the games, actually. So sometimes in ACC, I was like, wow. I went at Red Bull Ring in a GT3 using this wheel. I was like, wow, this is actually quite nice. I can really feel the curbs. Then I went out with this wheel in Suzuka, and I couldn't quite get that power. I don't know if it's because this is a wider wheelbase, but there is definitely inherently power in this wheelbase. So again, like the MOZA R3, that's 3.9 Newton meters. I think this 3.2 does pack a bit of a punch, but I think it does depend game by game. There are also some really interesting settings, and we'll get into software later in this video, where you can change things like the dampener, you can change things like the center spring, that I believe will have a big difference as well. But there is definitely some power in this base. Don't be fooled by it only being 3.2. You definitely can get that resistance in the middle of the corner. Now I'm going to take this wheel off because I want to show you the default rim now. So this is the default rim that comes with the base, a part of the 449/400 with my discount code. And it's not the nicest looking rim. You can see on the back you have screw holes here. They're not covered. I believe the THRUSTMASTER T598 rim is the same as well. You have these big shifters that are not magnetic, but they do actually have a satisfying click. There's quite a lot of travel in them, so they're not like hair trigger for, say, driving a Formula One car, But if you're driving an open world game and you want to do manual shifting, they're good enough for that for sure. And they've got this nice kind of cutouts as well. So I really like that. So these are the shifters. On the front, you can definitely see, in my opinion, this is designed for kind of open world racing games. You have the buttons here that kind of like basically becomes like a D-pad. The ABXY here for Xbox are triggered, and it's got that road car feel to it. So if you're playing something like Forza Horizon, the Crew Motorfest, Test Drive Unlimited, then this is going to feel natural for you. You've got these sliders on the top as well. So I quite like that for driving open world games. Interestingly, because of the diameter, it's kind of like fairly nice and tight. I actually did enjoy, like I said, driving at the Red Bull Ring in ACC using this wheel. And we'll get onto later how it is in the simulators. So don't expect the world from this. It's plasticky, but it's a bundled rim. It's got this QR. I think it does the job for the price. Right, just to confirm also on compatibility, even though you can't see any Xbox buttons necessarily on here, it's interesting because the Xbox button is on the base. The reason I note this is that we see a lot of wheels, for example, the Logitech RS hub from Xbox, the Xbox compatible version, the Fanatec Xbox wheels, they all have the buttons on the base, on the wheels, sorry. But here we have the button on the base, and I wonder if there's a particular reason for that. But it's an interesting one. So we have the Xbox button on the base. This is compatible with PC and Xbox. In fact, when you boot it up for the first time, it asks you what platform are you going to play on. Now, in terms of mounting, for this one, I decided to use the clamp. Now, I think this is quite a cool clamp. When I reviewed the MOZA R3, I was not a fan of the MOZA R3 clamp. It was kind of too long, and I just wish they could have something a bit more integrated. I didn't really know what I wanted exactly, but I knew I wanted it to be a bit more sleek. Well, I think Turtle Beach have done it here. It's a really cool system. So if you want to mount it to a rig, you've got your rig mounting points here. But if you want to clamp it to the table, you literally just slot that in and clamp it. So I think that's a really neat system. It does feel like it isn't. I did try and tighten it, and when I'm winding the wheel like that, you can sort of feel it wanting to squirm. But I think for general use, having the clamp like that, I think that's actually genius. That's one of the most ingenious things I've seen this year. I really rate it. The wheelbase as well has an inherent adjustability for going up and down, having the angle, which I really like. They've thought of that. And it feels like a wheelbase that you're going to want to clamp, to be honest. Like using this on a rig feels kind of overkill. However, let's get to the pedals. So these are not load cell pedals. They're not terrible pedals, but they're definitely not the star of the show. The star of the show here is the wheelbase. It's not the pedals. And what I realised is, because I was using this on carpet, is that carpet pedals, just because of the anatomy of doing it, means that you're just never going to be as precise as when you are on a rig. Now, these pedals should go onto a rig. They have mounting points, a bit like the equivalent THRUSTMASTER pedals. But I have to be honest and say they're not the star of the show. I don't think there's too much special going on with these pedals, although I would note that when I went into the software, it was very smooth, the actual position of the pedal in the software. So I was surprised how smooth it was. Now, when I went into iRacing, I was actually able to drive a NSX around Lime Rock Park with the new iRacing tyre physics that I was quite surprised by. But without the load cell, I didn't really have any feel of when I was locking up in the pedal. I just had to actually use visual cues on the dash of my wheel when the ABS lights were coming on, if that makes sense. So I had to drive a different way. That made me realise something. I think these pedals are much better when you're driving a car that has ABS. Because if you're driving a car that has good ABS, you can just hit the pedal to 100% and the ABS is going to sort it out for you. If you're driving cars that don't have ABS, or you turn the ABS down, you're going to have more of a difference compared to load cell pedals. So when I was driving in, I did a bit of CarX Street, I think, as well. They were kind of fine. When I did it in ACC, they were kind of fine, actually, when I turned the ABS on. And that's an interesting feature on this wheel, which I will get onto later. It does have so many dials. I'm very surprised by this wheel that I think retails for $249 standard. I think the discount code will also work on it. But thinking of my MOZA KS wheel, this has a lot of functionality, so we'll get onto that. But one thing I did do was map my ABS, so I was able to increase it so I could get more use out of the pedals. Okay, let me dive deeper into the driving experience now. So I went from fully sim in iRacing I did a bit of ACC and I went to CarX Street to get like an arcade experience. I have to say there were a lot of times in CarX Street in ACC where I had a big smile on my face. In iRacing, at times I was kind of impressed that I could drive, but I wouldn't recommend this system for iRacing. I don't think the brakes have enough in them for iRacing. In fact, I didn't drive on a public server because at times it was just difficult to know what I was doing. And again, I was driving through visual and audio cues of the car locking up rather than kind of feeling my pressure and associating it with what the brakes were doing. The wheelbase surprisingly has a lot of detail. Like, you can really appreciate a direct drive, even though it's only 3.2 Newton meters. You can really appreciate that detail. So I could feel what the car was doing. I was able to save a lot of things early by counter steering. I was able to do some cool overtakes in ACC. So I was actually surprised by the wheelbase. It has a lot of rotation as well. I don't know whether it's unlimited rotation or it's just like a huge amount, but you can rotate a lot on this thing. And I think that's probably going to be really good for like trucking games, maybe more of the open world racing game as well, but especially trucking sims as well. This could be an underrated wheelbase for that. Euro Truck Simulator and American Truck Simulator coming to Xbox very soon. So I enjoyed it on CarX Street. I enjoyed it probably the most on ACC. ACC, I was really surprised at times by how good the force feedback felt. Going over curbs, overtaking cars and kind of feeling the grip going and then coming back, feeling the pendulum of the back end. I was surprised by that. iRacing, I think it performed the worst. It did work in iRacing, it just picked up immediately. I used it on iRacing first before I even updated the firmware or anything. Just picked it up, I was able to go. And I was able to adjust the settings actually in the wheelbase itself. I was able to get it up to 100% in the wheelbase, but I wouldn't recommend it for iRacing. I just don't think you're going to have a good time in iRacing. And that was me driving a GT3. I can't imagine driving a Formula car with no ABS or driving the Mazda MX-5s. I think you would struggle. Having driven a Mazda MX-5 myself in real life, raced it, having driven a Ferrari 488 GT3, at times there's just not quite enough here in this wheelbase for that, and definitely not in the pedals. But that's about simulation level, but I just want to make you aware. Now, in terms of the software, it comes with this companion app that you download. I downloaded it on Windows. I think it's really good. It did an update, and I was able to see the progression of the update, didn't kind of hide it from me. And I was able to go in and adjust all of the settings I wanted, like the brake and throttle sensitivity, like the actual strength of the wheelbase, and I was able to save it to a profile and onboard memory. So really happy with that. I think Turtle Beach probably know what they're doing with their other things they do, like headsets. So saving on the onboard memory was amazing, and I can see that being good for using on Xbox as well, that you can kind of do it on a PC, sort out your profiles, and then put it on Xbox and not have to worry about that again. In terms of compatibility around the back, it's all USB. In fact, it's all USB-C, which is quite cool. So it's all USB-C here. One to the PC or Xbox, and that one to the pedals. There is room as well for accessories. This is the power. I like that it has a start-stop as well, because it can oscillate. One thing I did do in the settings is I completely turned off the damping to try and get that kind of raw feel that I like, and that does mean it will oscillate more. And there was a moment that I thought, I'm just going to press this button because the wheel is oscillating. So a little bit of a surprise package in times. Now, just to compare a little bit more specifically against the competition. So we know this is a 3.2 Newton meter wheelbase. The MOZA R3, I think, is the closest competition. That's 3.9. That is also a small form factor base. I think the MOZA SRP light pedals aren't stock noticeably better than these, but I think they have a better upgrade path. I know a lot of people upgrade those SRP lights. I'm not sure what the upgrade path on these is going to be. In terms of the rim, I think the MOZA ES rim, the Xbox rim, is a little bit better than this, actually, and it's technically also a hub system. But the refinement of the wheelbase, I quite like it, and there's something stylish about it as well. So if the pricing is similar, I don't think you'd be making necessarily a bad decision by getting this over the MOZA R3. With the MOZA R3 though, if you do want to upgrade the wheelbase later, you can do that, and you can keep your Xbox compatible rim. I'm not sure it's going to work that way with Turtle Beach. Now the THRUSTMASTER T598X is imminently coming out. I think it's going to be minimum $599. I'd be surprised if it's lower. I doubt it's going to be lower than $499. So when you're in between $499 or $599, that's a little bit more expensive than this, but you are getting 5 Newton meters. Those pedals, I believe, are better than these pedals. They're also going to be easier to mount to a rig. They also work really well on carpet. The rim, they're probably not a huge amount of difference in the rim. They both have a similar sort of look here, although this rim is it's quite a cheap looking and feeling rim, but it probably has a better quick release as well than the THRUSTMASTER clamp quick release. So that's interesting with the THRUSTMASTER. And then you have all of the belt-driven, you have the belt-driven THRUSTMASTER wheels, and you've got the gear-driven LOGITECH wheels as well. I think this is just better than that. I think going to direct drive gives you that immediate connection. There were moments I had in iRacing, even though I wouldn't recommend it in iRacing, I think it's a good test. I was able to feel exactly what the car was doing immediately and correct it that I just wouldn't have been able to do on a Logitech G923 or my old THRUSTMASTER belt-driven wheelbase. This is just immediate. It doesn't seem to get too hot either, but you are using that direct drive motor, which is directly connected to the shaft, so you have that immediate response. So in terms of the competition, it's a very competitive landscape. The pricing here isn't obscenely cheap. It's not undercutting the MOZA R3. So it's not like if this was cheaper, I would be more inclined to say, oh, hang on, okay, well, you're saving your money. Probably the pedals don't have as good an upgrade path. The rim's not quite as good, but you're saving a bit of cash. At the moment, it seems to be kind of parity, or the R3 is cheaper, which is difficult for this Turtle Beach product. But it's a good start, I think, into this world of doing 3.2. Maybe they'll do something else around it, like a 5 or something would be interesting. And it is Turtle Beach as well, so you will be able to buy it from local retailers in a lot of big countries, and you'll have those kind of refund rights you get from going to a big retailer that you can't always do with MOZA. Now, I promised I'd talk about this. So Turtle Beach also sent this across for review. I didn't know what to expect of it when I looked at pictures. I thought this might be quite cheap and tacky and nasty, and I can't quite make my mind up on this. The grips feel very, very, very nice. This is $249, remember. The grips feel nice. The front plate is actually deceptively nice. It's not amazing, but it's deceptively nice. And there's some little touches, like here. I don't know if you can see, some very nice stylistic touches. Even at the top here, this glossy is an interesting choice. I don't see it a lot, but this kind of glossy plastic, I think looks different. So it's almost like a wheel that it has a bit of a different look about it from even stuff like the MOZA KS, Simagic GT Neo. Obviously, it feels weird comparing this to... By the way, this will only work on the Turtle Beach devices. So this is not the same as another wheel that you can put a different quick release on and connect it to PC via USB. This is for the Turtle Beach stuff only. But it has 3 encoders here, these on the side. It's got the Xbox back and select. It has 2 D-pads here. They're not funky switches, but it has 2 D-pads. It's got all the buttons here. It's got, I think I mentioned these side ones, and it's got a little ref bar as well. And it's actually got one at the bottom. The pairing process is quite interesting. It feels like you're pairing a video game controller. You have to like hold 2 buttons and hold select. But if you are going to go for this ecosystem, I think it's a little bit of a trump card actually to have this Formula wheel. Now, I will caveat that by saying when I went onto ACC, for whatever reason, I had my best racing on this wheel, even though I should have my best racing on this wheel. That's probably because I need to fine-tune the settings more. If I could get the force feedback feeling like it did on this wheel, on the Formula One, kind of be in the corners and feeling it more like I was here, then it would be quite compelling. But my jury's still out on that one because I haven't been able to extract the maximum performance. But I think they're doing a good job here. $249 for that feels like a good thing Turtle Beach are doing to serve the Turtle Beach audience. So it's a really interesting review. Like I said, I've never reviewed Turtle Beach before. There's a lot of quality going on here. I think this wheelbase is the star. It looks nice. It's got this cool clamp solution. It feels like premium material. This rim doesn't feel premium, but it looks like it's designed for kind of open world racing games, which is interesting. They brought this Formula wheel to the party for people who want to do GT and Formula racing. And the pedals, I don't know what the upgrade path is. We'll have to see. If they can bring some kind of load cell to the party here to upgrade it, that would be interesting. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed me putting this through its paces on not just an open world racing game, but also iRacing and ACC. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.